Good morning everyone. In this class we are discussing with the development of your pharyngeal apparatus. In the last class we have discussed about the derivatives of mesoderm. In this class we are discussing about the derivatives of your ectoderm and also endoderm. Okay. So what is the definition for pharyngeal apparatus? What is the definition for pharyngeal apparatus? Write down pharyngeal apparatus, which is also known as branchial apparatus, is a complex structure that is formed during the development of the embryo. Pharyngeal apparatus, which is also known as branchial apparatus, which is formed during the development of embryonic stage, give rise to various structures present in the head and neck region, including face, jaw and the outer part of the ear. This is the definition for pharyngeal apparatus, and it consists of pharyngeal arches, pharyngeal cleft, pouches and pharyngeal membrane. So this is your pharyngeal arches. We name it as first, second, third, fourth and sixth one. We have a muscle, nerve and bony part, blood supply, derivatives for each and every pharyngeal arches. So what is, this is the mesoderm part, that is pharyngeal arches, pharyngeal arch. So what is the derivative of your first pharyngeal arch? What is the derivative of first pharyngeal arch? Muscles of mastication, which is supplied by which nerve? It is supplied by mandibular nerve. Okay. What about the bony structures? It is mandible and maxillary process. And the artery derived from your first pharyngeal arch is maxillary artery. Artery development or derivatives is similar to your pharyngeal aortic arches. Okay. What about the second arch? It is muscle of facial expression. So what are all the muscles of facial expression? Muscles of facial expression. Which all muscles come under this heading? It's finished, right? Is it completed or not, this topic? Is it covered already? What about dissection? Is it covered? No. Okay. So tell me the names of facial expression muscles. Any one or two, enough. Okay. 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 So your muscles of facial expression is supplied by facial nerve. What about the bony part? It is styloid process along with the lesser horn and greater part of your hyoid bone. Hyoid bone. Okay, and the artery for your second pharyngeal arch is hyoid artery and stapedial artery. Is it clear for everyone? First and second pharyngeal arch. Then we have third pharyngeal arch. What about the muscle here? It is stylopharyngeus muscle, which is supplied by your glossopharyngeal nerve. What about the bony structures or cartilage? It is a greater horn and lesser part of the hyoid bone. What about the blood supply? Which is the derivative of your third aortic arch? Which artery? Which artery is the derivative of your third aortic arch? Common carotid artery. It's common carotid artery. Okay. Next, the fourth one. What about the muscle derived from the fourth pharyngeal arch? Which muscle? Cricothyroid. Okay. Cricothyroid and levator muscle and constrictor muscle of the constrictor muscles of which organ? Of pharynx. So what about the blood supply? It is supplied by superior laryngeal nerve. What about the bony structures derived from the fourth pharyngeal arch? It is the cartilage of your thyroid. Cartilages of thyroid. So what is the blood supply here? What is the derivative of your fourth pharyngeal arch? What is the derivative of fourth pharyngeal arch? Anybody from the table? Any guess at least? It is aortic arch and arch of aorta and left subclavian artery. Okay. Arteries are similar to your aortic arches only. Okay. Next, the last one is sixth pharyngeal arch. What about the muscles derived from the sixth pharyngeal arch? It is the intrinsic muscles of larynx. Then what about the nerve supply? It is supplied by recurrent laryngeal nerve. And the bony structure is similar to your fourth one only, that is cartilages of thyroid. What about the blood supply for the sixth pharyngeal arch? What about the blood supply or derivative of your sixth aortic arches? Anybody from this side? First three tables, girls. Okay. Anyone else? What about the derivative of your sixth aortic arch? Truncus arteriosus. Okay. Truncus arteriosus and pulmonary artery, right? It is pulmonary artery. So these are the mesodermal derivatives of your pharyngeal apparatus. Any doubts in this? Anyone? Any doubts? These are just the mesodermal derivatives. We still have to discuss the ectodermal and endodermal derivatives. Okay. Any doubts, class? I'll share the notes. You can take picture later. Don't click pictures now. Okay. Then we will move on to the ectodermal derivatives, where we can see the ectodermal ectodermal lining, inner aspect or outer aspect? Outer aspect. So basically this is the ectoderm. Okay, this is the ectoderm, and this structure is called, what it is called? Ectodermal or pharyngeal cleft, which is also known as pharyngeal groove. Pharyngeal cleft or groove. Okay. Pharyngeal cleft and pharyngeal groove are 4 in number. First one, second one, third one and fourth one. Okay. So the very first derivative, that means the derivative of your first pharyngeal cleft is lining of the external auditory meatus. Okay. Derivative of your first pharyngeal cleft is lining of the external auditory meatus. Is it clear for everyone? Okay. Then we have the second one. In the second one, we can see one important structure. From here, the mesoderm of your second pharyngeal arch will outgrow and forms a structure like this, and it will run in the downward direction. I can also say cranial to caudal direction. Okay. Because of the formation of this structure, there will be a presence of cavity here. Okay. Because of the outgrowth of the second mesodermal part, we can see the presence of cavity between your third, fourth and second pharyngeal cleft. This cavity is called cervical sinus. That cavity is called cervical sinus, and the outgrowth of your second pharyngeal arch, which is lined by the ectoderm, it will be lined by your ectoderm, will ultimately leads to the formation of platysma. Okay. As a result, the third and fourth pharyngeal arches will obliterate. That means close. So from the pharyngeal cleft, it is the outer lining of your pharyngeal apparatus, which is also known as pharyngeal groove. They are 4 in number. We name it as first, second, third and fourth. The first pharyngeal cleft give a derivative, that is lining of the external auditory meatus. The second one, the mesoderm of the second pharyngeal groove, second pharyngeal arch will show a outgrowth in a craniocaudal direction, forming a cavity called cervical sinus. Later, the outgrowth structure will develop to form the platysma. As a result, the third and fourth pharyngeal cleft will be closed. Any doubts? Any doubts in this? So this is all about the ectodermal derivative of your pharyngeal apparatus. Any doubts in this? Any doubts in the formation of pharyngeal arch or pharyngeal cleft? No doubts? Any doubts in the derivatives of mesoderm and ectoderm? Any doubts? No doubts? Okay. Okay. Pharyngeal cleft. There are 4 pharyngeal cleft or groove. We name it as first, second, third and fourth. These are invaginations of surface ectoderm between the pharyngeal arches. In the region of pharyngeal membrane, the pharyngeal wall is very thin but consists of 3 layers. From inside to out, these are endoderm, mesoderm and ectoderm. Only first pharyngeal cleft give rise to a definitive structure, that is the external auditory meatus, whereas all other 3 clefts are obliterated, that means it is closed. Okay. Cervical sinus. The mesenchyme of the second pharyngeal arch rapidly grows downward, that is in a craniocaudal direction, and overlaps the second, third and fourth pharyngeal cleft and fuses with the epicardial ridge. Thus, second, third and fourth pharyngeal cleft get buried under the surface and forms a slit-like cavity that is called the cervical sinus, and it is lined by the ectoderm. The cervical sinus soon disappear as the development of your neck takes place. Consequently, the side of the neck that was so far marked by the pharyngeal groove now becomes smooth. Any doubts in this? Any doubts in any points? So, the cervical sinus is also clear for everyone? No doubts? Okay. This is the diagram for your cervical cleft. You can observe the structure and compare with this diagram which I have shown. Any doubts we can discuss. I'll share the notes, so please stop and click pictures, okay? Stop it. Any doubts? These are the cleft. This is the second cleft, third cleft and fourth cleft, which is going to close later. And this extended part what you are seeing, no, this is nothing but your platysma, which is moving towards your neck region, and it is present along with your which muscle? Sternocleidomastoid muscle, okay. And this cavity what you are seeing is nothing but your cervical sinus, okay. This is the first pharyngeal cleft which is forming the lining for your external auditory meatus. Any doubts? Just concentrate on the first picture. This is for the pharyngeal pouch, I will discuss later. Now only concentrate on the first one. First, second, third and fourth pharyngeal clefts. Any doubts in this? No doubts? Shall we move on to the next topic? Okay. Of your endoderm, where we can see the endoderm. Please sit down there. Sit. Okay. Where we can see the endoderm, in which part? In the inner aspect, right? So here we can see the presence of your So remember, this is only the one side structure. I can say this is the left side structure. In the same way, the 6 pharyngeal arches is also present on the right side, on this side. Okay. So now, whatever this part you are seeing here is called the midline, right? So while studying about the derivatives of your endoderm, we have midline derivatives and lateral derivatives. So if this is the midline, we consider this part and this part has the lateral parts, right? So we have midline derivatives and also lateral derivatives. And remember, each your pharyngeal apparatus has two borders and two ends, okay. So this is the cranial border and this is the caudal border, and this end is the ventral end and this end is the dorsal end, right. So now in the process of the development of the derivatives, your ventral end will generally obliterated or it will disappear, okay. And the midline derivatives will leads to the formation of the tongue and few other structures, okay. Midline derivatives will give rise to tongue and few other structures, whereas the ventral end will generally disappear. So we are left only with the dorsal end. Any doubts in this? Any doubts? Others? Okay. So now I will erase all these parts. So we are left only with the dorsal end, okay. These are the dorsal end. Okay. And this dorsal end is also lined by the endoderm like this. Okay. And this part we call it as endodermal pouches. Remember, this is called endodermal or pharyngeal pouches. So now each pharyngeal pouch, see, this is the pouch part and here the endoderm is entering, I mean the lining part. So now this endoderm has two wings again. This is called dorsal wing and this is called ventral wing. Any doubts? Any doubts in this? Each endoderm or pharyngeal pouches have two wings, dorsal wing and ventral wing, except for the first one. Except the first pouch. The first pouch is considered as a single pouch. Okay. Any doubts? So this first pouch along with the first pouch plus the dorsal wing of the second pouch give rise to tubotympanic recess. Okay. The whole first pouch along with the dorsal wing of the second pharyngeal pouch give rise to tubotympanic recess. Any doubts? And the ventral wing give rise to tonsil. Okay. Now the dorsal wing of third pouch give rise to which part? Superior parathyroid. Superior parathyroid. thyroid. Okay. And the ventral part, ventral wing of third pouch give rise to which part? Thymus. Give rise to thymus. Okay. The last one, that is the dorsal wing of fourth pouch give rise to inferior parathyroid. Okay. And the ventral wing of last, that is the fourth pouch, give rise to a complex that is called caudal pharyngeal complex. Any doubts? Okay. We have only the dorsal end left to discuss about the derivatives of your endoderm. Okay. We have an important structure called endodermal pouch. They are 4 in number. We name it as first, second, third and fourth. Each pharyngeal pouch has 2 wings, dorsal wing and ventral wing, except the first one. So, the whole first pharyngeal pouch along with the dorsal wing of the second one give rise to tubotympanic recess, and the ventral wing of second pharyngeal pouch give rise to your tonsil. It is also mentioned like tonsillar cleft part. Right now remember tonsil. Okay. And the dorsal wing of third pharyngeal pouch give rise to superior parathyroid structure. Ventral wing of third pharyngeal pouch give rise to thymus. Dorsal wing of fourth pharyngeal pouch give rise to inferior parathyroid, whereas the ventral wing of the fourth pharyngeal arch give rise to a structure called caudal pharyngeal complex. Caudal pharyngeal complex. Any doubts in this? No doubts. Here they have used a word complex because in few textbook it is mentioned there is a presence of your fifth pharyngeal pouch. Pharyngeal pouch, but later it will disappear. So they have given the name complex because in few textbook it is mentioned the ventral wing of fourth pharyngeal pouch along with the fifth pharyngeal pouch give rise to a structure called caudal pharyngeal pouch. In few textbook it is mentioned only the ventral wing of fourth one will give rise to caudal pharyngeal. Remember both the points. As they asked question in your viva, you can answer according to that. If they mention anything about fifth pharyngeal arch, at that time you add it for the fourth one and say it will give rise to your caudal pharyngeal complex. Okay. Any doubts in this? This is all about the endodermal derivative of your pharyngeal apparatus. Any doubts? Any doubts? No doubts? Is it clear for everyone? So until now we have discussed the mesodermal, ectodermal and also the endodermal derivative of your pharyngeal apparatus. Okay. Pharyngeal pouches. There are 4 pairs of pharyngeal pouches. These are vaginations of endoderm lining the interior to primitive pharynx between the 2 arches. The pharyngeal pouches are numbered in craniocaudal direction. Thus, the first pouch is present between the first and second arch, and the second pouch is present between the second and third arch, and so on. First pharyngeal pouch. The first pharyngeal pouch elongates to form a diverticulum called tubotympanic recess. The distal expanded part of tubotympanic recess forms the middle ear cavity and also the mastoid antrum. What do you mean by mastoid antrum? Not finished? Nowhere you have heard about this before? Mastoid antrum? Okay, fine. Just go and see in the textbook once, just the definition. Okay. The proximal tubular part of tubotympanic recess forms the auditory tube, which forms a communication between the nasopharynx and tympanic cavity. Second pharyngeal pouch, the endoderm of the second pouch proliferates to form number of tiny solid buds that extends into the underlying mesoderm. The mesoderm condenses around these buds. The central core of these buds break down to form the tonsillar crypts. That's why I mentioned, just remember the word tonsillar right now. Later you can see the different structure that are actually derived from your second pharyngeal arch. While writing, add it as a tonsillar crypts. Okay. The mesoderm forms lymphoid tissue, fibrous capsule and also the connective tissue elements of your tonsil. The second pouch is mostly obliterated by the developing palatine tonsil. In adult, part of this pouch remains as a intratonsillar cleft. Third pharyngeal pouch. The third pharyngeal pouch expands and differentiates into dorsal bulbar part and ventral tubular part, that is nothing but your dorsal wing and ventral wing. Okay. The endoderm of the dorsal tubular part of the third pouch proliferates to form the inferior parathyroid. The endoderm of ventral tubular part of the third pouch proliferate and give rise to thymus. The developing thymus and parathyroid glands later on lose their connection with the developing pharynx. Stop talking. Any doubts? Any doubts in the third pharyngeal pouch? Okay. Fourth pharyngeal pouch. Fourth pharyngeal pouch expands and differentiates into again dorsal wing and ventral wing. The communication of the fourth pouch with the pharynx becomes narrow and soon it will disappear. The endoderm of dorsal bulbar part of the fourth pouch proliferates to form the superior parathyroid gland. Okay. It proliferates to form the superior parathyroid gland, whereas the ventral wing will proliferate to form the caudal pharyngeal complex along with the fifth pharyngeal pouch. Later again the fifth pharyngeal pouch will also disappear in the process of development. And the pharyngeal apparatus development is taking in which week? It takes place in the 4th and 5th week. In few textbook it is mentioned it will start from the 4th week and extends up to the 6th week. So better mention 4th to 6th week while telling. Okay. Any doubts in this? No doubts? Others? Any doubts in the derivatives of any part? No doubt? Okay. This is the diagram for the pharyngeal pouches. You can see and compare the structures once. This is the first, second, third and fourth pharyngeal pouches. The first one will form the tubotympanic recess, second one will form the tonsil, that is tonsillar crypts, okay. And the third one will form the superior parathyroid and thymus. The last fourth one will form the inferior parathyroid and the caudal pharyngeal complex. Here, caudal pharyngeal complex, inferior parathyroid and superior parathyroid glands. Thyroid is finished? No? Gross anatomy. Just see this picture also once. These are the pouch formation in the initial stage and this is after the formation of your thyroid gland. Okay. See this now. Any doubts? This is a tabular column showing the derivatives. Stop talking. This is the tabular column of showing the derivatives of your pharyngeal pouches. Next, the last topic for today's session is pharyngeal membrane. So, what do you mean by pharyngeal membrane? There are 4 pharyngeal membranes. We name it as first, second, third and fourth. They are located between the pharyngeal arches and are initially formed of 2 layers. The first layer or the inner layer formed by the endodermal lining of the pouch and an outer layer formed by the ectodermal lining of the pharyngeal cleft. Later, these 2 layers become separated by a thin layer of mesoderm. So, what did you understand? This is the anterior view diagram. So, imagine this is your pharyngeal arch, okay, and this is the inner aspect and this is the outer aspect. In the outer aspect, we have the lining of ectoderm, and in the inner aspect, we have the lining of endoderm. So, before covering the next arch, it will form a structure like this, okay. Then again it will split and cover your second arch, okay. Now, this part is called as pharyngeal membrane. That is why it is mentioned, it is formed by the 2 layers, that is outer ectoderm and inner endoderm. Between these 2 layers, we can see a thin line of one more structure, that is nothing but the mesoderm. Okay. So, your pharyngeal membrane is also a complex structure that is formed by the inner mesoderm, outer ectoderm and inner endoderm. Okay. These are the 3 structures that we can see in the pharyngeal membrane, and we name it as 1, 2 or first, second, third and fourth pharyngeal membranes. Okay. Now, it consists of 3 layers, that is the outer layer of ectoderm, middle layer of mesoderm and inner layer of the endoderm, which is similar to the arrangement of layers in the trilaminar embryonic disc. Only first pair of pharyngeal membrane forms the definitive structure, that is called the tympanic membrane, whereas the remaining pharyngeal membranes will disappear. So, here we have to concentrate only on the first pharyngeal membrane. The derivative of your first pharyngeal membrane is the tympanic membrane, whereas the second, third and fourth pharyngeal membrane will disappear during the process of development. So, any doubts in the pharyngeal membrane? No doubts? So, here you can see the derivative of your pharyngeal cleft or groove along with the pharyngeal membrane. The first pharyngeal cleft will give rise to the lining or the outer lining of the external auditory meatus along with the outer ectodermal layer of the tympanic membrane. Write down this point. Your first pharyngeal cleft gives a derivative, that is the outer lining of the external auditory meatus plus outer ectodermal layer of the tympanic membrane, whereas the second, third and fourth will basically disappear, but we can see the formation of 2 important structures. One is cervical sinus and another one is the formation of platysma. Okay. Next is pharyngeal membrane. The first pharyngeal membrane will give rise to tympanic membrane whereas the second, third and fourth pharyngeal membrane will also disappear. All about the development of your pharyngeal apparatus. Pharyngeal apparatus, which is also known as branchial apparatus, is a complex structure that is formed during the early embryonic stage, and it gives rise to various structures that present in our head and neck region, including face, jaw and part of the ear. Okay, and the pharyngeal apparatus consists of pharyngeal arches, cleft, pouches and pharyngeal membrane. So what is pharyngeal arch? Pharyngeal arch is a mesoderm core of your pharyngeal apparatus lined by the ectoderm and also endoderm. Okay. We have 6 pharyngeal arches, out of which the 5th one will disappear. So we name it as 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 6th pharyngeal arches. So what is the complex structures present in the pharyngeal arches? We can see the derivative of muscle, nerve, bony structures, that is your cartilages, and sometimes it is also ligaments and blood vessels. So what is the derivative of first pharyngeal arch? Muscles of mastication supplied by mandibular nerve. What is the bony structures? Mandibular process and maxillary process. What about the artery derived from your first? Maxillary artery. These are only the important structures. In the notes I have added other structures also. So you have to learn about other structures. Okay. What about the second pharyngeal arch derivatives? Muscles of facial expression supplied by facial nerve. What about the bony part? Styloid process. Hyoid bone. Which part of hyoid bone? Lesser horn and greater part of the hyoid bone. What about the blood vessel? Hyoid artery and stapedial artery. What about the third pharyngeal arch? Stylopharyngeus muscle supplied by glossopharyngeal nerve. Cartilage, lesser part of the hyoid bone and greater horn of the hyoid bone. What about the arteries? Common carotid arteries. What are the branches of common carotid artery? External and internal common carotid artery. Okay. What about the fourth pharyngeal arch? Cricothyroid and levator muscles and constrictor muscles of the pharynx, supplied by which nerve? Superior laryngeal nerve. What about the bony part? Cartilages of your thyroid gland. Okay. Blood supply? Arch of aorta and left subclavian artery. The last one is sixth pharyngeal arch. Derivatives of sixth pharyngeal arch? Intrinsic muscle of the larynx supplied by recurrent laryngeal nerve. What about the bony part? Okay. Blood supply? Pulmonary arteries and ductus arteriosus. Okay. What is ductus arteriosus? Okay, just go and check what is ductus arteriosus once. Okay. And the next part is ectodermal derivatives. What do you mean by ectodermal derivatives? Derivatives of your pharyngeal cleft or groove. Okay. Which is ectoderm is lined in the outer aspect of the pharyngeal apparatus or pharyngeal arch. Okay. So what are all the derivatives of pharyngeal cleft? What is the derivative of first pharyngeal cleft? External auditory line, outer lining of the external auditory meatus, and one more structure, outer outer ectodermal layer of the tympanic membrane. What happens to the second, third and fourth structures? Obliterated by why it is obliterated or why it is closed? First table. Mesoderm part of the second pharyngeal arch will show the outgrowth in the craniocaudal direction, giving rise to two important structures, that is cervical sinus and the formation of platysma. This leads to the closure of your second, third and fourth pharyngeal cleft. Okay. The next topic is pharyngeal pouches. So what is pharyngeal pouches? Pharyngeal pouches is the inner lining of your mesodermal core. Okay. So how many pharyngeal pouches are there? 4. How we study the pharyngeal pouches? We have two derivatives, that is midline derivatives and lateral derivatives. In this class we are only studied about the lateral derivatives because the midline derivatives will form the part of your tongue. Okay. In the lateral derivative also we are focusing only on the dorsal end because the ventral end will generally disappears. Okay. So what happens in the dorsal end? What is the derivative of first pharyngeal pouch? Tubo-tympanic recess. It forms along with the dorsal wing of the second pharyngeal pouch. So what is the ventral wing derivative of second pharyngeal pouch? Tonsil. Okay. Next, third pharyngeal pouch. Dorsal wing will give rise to inferior, superior or inferior? Inferior parathyroid, and the ventral wing will give rise to thymus. Okay. What about the fourth one? Dorsal wing will give rise to superior parathyroid and the ventral wing will give rise to thyroid. It gives rise to caudal pharyngeal complex along with the involvement of fifth pharyngeal pouch can also be seen here, and later your fifth pharyngeal pouch will basically disappears. This is all about the derivatives of your mesoderm, ectoderm and endoderm of the pharyngeal apparatus. Any doubts? And the last topic is pharyngeal membrane. So what is pharyngeal membrane? Pharyngeal membrane is basically present between the two pharyngeal arches. It has 3 layers: middle mesoderm, outer ectoderm and inner endoderm. Out of 4 pharyngeal arches, we can see derivative only from the first one, whereas the second, third and fourth will disappear. The first pharyngeal membrane will give rise to your tympanic membrane. Okay. Any doubts? Any doubts on this? Fine, then we will end the class. Thank you.